two systems that are used for this exam, which your examiners would really hope that you have in your head. And the first is the 5 essentials. Okay? Who wants to talk about the 5 essentials? Who didn't I talk to last night?
You can talk to me.
Okay, you know it though, to the guy. To find out if it's creep, he says pause longer, wait longer. And if it's creep, the creep will get worse. Do you understand that?
Oh, okay.
The creep is not aware of it. If on the other hand, the guy, this is quite advanced actually, if on the other hand the guy does this, okay, and he does wait longer, then there's actually a fault in the stroke. This rod straight position, very significant. Why does it separate a caster from the mend?
You're talking about the beginning of loop, I'm guessing the beginning of loop formation. The fly leg has been formed. It has no choice. It's going to go where the rod tip has gone.
Yeah,
You're manipulating the bottom.
What is actually happening here at rod straight position? What's
Is that the beginning of loop formation?
Yes. Why? Well,
because your line speed has overtaken your rod tip speed.
Yes. So what about the rod tip speed?
The rod tip speed was still going to be moving if it's gone stop, counterflex and back.
Yeah. Right. This is when the rod tip speed is the fastest. Okay. Here the rod's got energy. It's unloading. It's still going. The rod tip is going quicker. It gets to rod straight position, and then it starts to go slower. So this is your maximum speed. So this is the fly leg of the loop. This is the rod leg of the loop. That's when it slows. Okay. So if you were to look at a loop here on a distance cast, this is a pretty common loop. It's upside down. Let me do it the other way so you can see it. So let's say the loop was going this way. We've got this position here. So you'll see it quite often, especially in a nice sexy loop. We'll do a sexy loop. You all know what Sexyloops is, right?
Yeah.
They look, well, let's do one. Let's do it really sexy. Okay. Tell me about that loop. Tell me about this point here. Yeah, that's maximum counterflex to put that in. Okay, it will come back up depending on the tension in the loop. This point here.
Rod strip position.
Yes, this will translate. Yes, normally rod straight position. Okay. To add a little bit to that, it actually can depend on when the haul finishes, because the haul also controls it. But for your exam, you just say rod straight position. Okay. For the true understanding, it's also governed by the haul. Okay. Because if my haul goes like that and my rod's still bent, my line speed is the addition of tip speed plus haul speed. So if my rod tip is going at 100 miles an hour and my haul is going at 50 miles an hour, my line is going at 150 miles an hour. Nice and simple, okay? If I then suddenly stop hauling, okay, my line is going 150 miles an hour, my rod tip's going 100 miles an hour, okay? Which can cause a tailing loop. It's one of the causes of tailing loops. But it doesn't always cause a tailing loop, because I can stop the rod here and the line will just pass the rod tip. And that's what we do in some of the distance casts we do, okay? That's outside the scope of the exam. That's why I just want you to say rod straight position, okay? Nice and simple, okay? What happened here? What happened here? Oh, it could be. It doesn't have to be. There are lots of causes of that. But what would you call that?
Concave or non-straight fly leg.
Yep. Yep. So that's not a straight leg of the. That's not a straight line path of the rod tip, right? That's the first essential. So I've got, I don't know, I looked on the exam, right, you've got 3 that you're asking to give. Okay, I can think of 5 or 6 causes of this, or 7 causes I think. 5 main ones. What are the 3 you're going to teach? What are the 3 you're going to use? Not you, okay? You're very well prepared. What are the 3 causes? Someone Okay.
Yeah.
Causes of tailing loops. What are the causes?
Tailing loop,
Yeah.
just a concave, when you start casting and then you have some problem and then make the concave, the tip pass will so become the concave.
Okay.
Yes.
It doesn't go bang, it just does that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what are the 3 causes that you're going to? Because in the exam they ask you for 3 causes,
Yes.
casters causes.
Yes.
What 3 are you going to teach?
你要教哪3个？
那个 tailing loop
Tailing loop, maybe up to small
Okay.
and double holding to finish too early
Okay.
and not 180 degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I would put a major one in there. I would put creep in there.
Creep.
Creep is a major cause, and so don't you took you. So I would definitely put that
Yes.
in because that's probably
Yes.
that's
Creep.
one of the
Yeah.
major causes.
Yes.
Finishing the hole too soon.
Yeah.
It is a cause.
Yes.
I only get it a few times in my life, and I've taught a
Yes.
lot of people, right?
Yeah.
I've only seen it a few times, and the only times I've actually seen it is
Yeah.
when I've taught the double hole,
Yeah.
and then it comes in.
Yes.
Can you do it?
Yes.
You can, because it's very difficult to do it.
Double hole tailing loop is
You
yeah.
it's so unsynced when you teach it because
Yes.
you're going to have to demonstrate it too. Okay?
Demonstrate.
You're going in that teaching exam.
Yes.
You've got 3 causes.
Yes.
You're going to go casting up is too small.
Yes.
Okay. Creep. Okay.
Yes.
And then you're going to say, or and then you're going to say.
加速不平均 is
not smooth speed not smooth
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me say this to all of you. If that's going to be one of your ones,
Yes.
I want to see it. Okay? Because it is very hard to do. I struggle to do it, but maybe you've practiced it and you can do it perfectly. Great, wonderful. It's a very hard one. I would concentrate on the ones that you can do and the ones that are very common. Finishing the hole too soon is not actually a common cause. Okay. I would look about that. Hang on, where was I? Right. Oh, let's get back to the 5 essentials. So, what was the first one?
creep
Yes.
LP
Which is an action in itself, okay? It's an action in itself and it's a result of the other 4 coming together. What do I mean by it's an action in itself? He's already told you. What do I mean by an action in itself? What is a straight line path? Maybe that's not a very good, maybe that's a language thing. Okay. All right. Let me think of the question here.
I think a simple way to put in that questions. I think they couldn't pick up.
All right. Okay. Why is this one going wrong? Particularly on a distance cast, right? All right, my angle's over there, right? I'm trying to put a straight line cast towards that little red pillar there, okay? The red pillar over there, okay? Huh?
加速不均
Got in a curve.
You don't have a smooth acceleration, smooth and fast.
Not brick stop.
Huh? I can't you guys.
Checking. Yeah.
Straight little gap through here. Okay, tracking. Good. I like to cast at you, right? So if you're teaching and you're looking at a loop, you've got to walk around that person. They're going to walk around you looking at your tracking. When you're teaching, you've got to go around and look at tracking. So tracking is part of the 5 essentials, and it's number 1. It's an action in itself. Okay, so it's tracking, okay, to get this straight line path, to understand that. How do you fix tracking? What is tracking? What does tracking mean? What is tracking? You just said tracking. What is tracking?
The rod tip traveling in a straight plane.
It's not. Well, it is. It's one way. It's looking down. It's like if you were a bird looking down. It's in a straight line.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are lots of ways to fix that. How do you, if you're going to teach somebody and they've got bad tracking, are you understanding your language? Yeah, okay, you can understand. Okay, good. See, he knew and you didn't know.
I thought you were speaking Mandarin.
All right, so how to fix poor tracking? How do you do it? You've got somebody there and he's coming off and he's going over there and then he's going like that. And every time he's casting, it's going in a corner. Okay, and that's very common. In distance casting, you often see that because people automatically think that's behind them. It's not, it's back there. You've got to, if you're in a distance competition, you put that rod on the ground, there's your target, it's that tree there, you just put the rod down and then you go there and you go, oh right, it's that post over there, okay? You run along it. You don't just go, oh yeah, that's it. You've got to pick a target, right? So you line it up. So when you, all right, so there are ways of fixing this. I think the easiest way to fix tracking is to give somebody to make them cast to accuracy, okay? Targets, okay? Because when you cast at a target, you've got to, I don't know how you do it, okay, but I know how I do it, and I know how other competition casters do it. They put their casting foot forward, put the weight on this, keep the elbow in, not out here, okay? So the foot's forward, elbows in, eyes to the thumbs up to the eye, very straight. And I've got a target there. If I've got a target there, and I'm sure you're going to, I hope you all know this, if you've got a target down there, you've also got a target up there. And the closer it is, the higher it is, okay? So it does this. There's one target, there's your target up there. There's your next target, target's a little bit lower, but it's there. And the first thing I do, and I do this when I'm fishing for snakehead all the time. Great fish you guys have got here. The minute I see a snakehead, the first thing that goes in my head, there's a target, okay? I don't think, God, I've got to get that fish. I think there's the target, and I cast straight up to the target, okay? And so everything's aligned, okay? So it's a good way of practicing tracking. There are other ones you can do. You can imagine there's a brick wall here. I always used to teach that Steve Rajaff is a really good caster, many times world champion. I always used to teach that he used to take the butt section and move it along the wall. I actually asked him, and he doesn't. He just imagines there's a wall there. He never actually did that, right? I asked him that a little while ago. I've been saying it for years and years, so it's one of those myths. Another one is to get along a field with a straight line and just come back, stop, and have a look. Have a look to see where that line is and if that's straight. Tracking is very, very important in casting, okay? Are there times when you don't want to track straight?
Underpowered curve cast?
That's one, yep. There are certainly times when you don't. Well, no, underpowered curve cast could be a straight tracking, but there are times when you can actually use tracking to make in effect the curve casts. I wouldn't call that underpowered, but in effect, yes. There are certainly times when you don't want to track straight. But normally, yes. Okay. Normally we've got a straight tracking in there because we want a straight line path. We want a straight top leg. Okay. So that's only essential number one, right? Straight line path of the rod tip. The second one, and we can do these in any order. I'll fix my shoe later. We can do these in any order, but now they don't matter actually which order the next four come in because they all come together. You know, it's like so we've got this one here, the straight line path, which is in itself tracking, and then it's the other four which make it happen in this plane. Okay, so tracking is this plane, so it's this way. The other four make it go this way. Okay, so understand that. So first one, what's the next one? He's already said them. What's the next? Give me one. Arc. Yes. Use your rod. If you've got a nice Instructor rod like this, you can talk about this. Okay, here's your arc. This is what arc means. What can you tell me about arc? Why is arc important?
To maintain the straight line path.
Mm-hmm. Well,
To
what can you tell? What about the arc? This is the arc, right? It's the angle change of the rod. Okay. But what else have you got to tell me about it? Why is arc important? Is it always the same?
No,
No.
it changes.
Okay.
It changes based on the amount of line you have outside of the rod tip.
And?
And the longer the line, the bigger the arc.
Yeah, but it's not just the amount of line. There's also another key. There's two keys to that. I mean, yes, you're right. It does change, right? It does change according to the amount of line. The more line you've got out, the more the rod bends, right? But there's another key issue to that because, what is it? What do you go? Huh?
eliminate slack.
It's one of the drills that you've got guys have got to do.
The speed.
Light speed.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So the more line you carry, and or the faster you move it, the wider the arc must be to accommodate this tip path. Otherwise, it's going to go like this, and that's going to cause a tailing loop. Okay. Arc. Oh, so how do you teach arc? You know, this is very, very common. Because when you're teaching, particularly when you're teaching people to fish for a long time, and they may have read books, they may have heard you've got to cast from 12 to 2, or 10 to 12:30, or 1 to 11, or whatever. They've had this fixed thing in their mind for many years. So this is very typically what will happen. They're going to go for distance, and they're going to cast from, I don't know, let's say 10 to 2, right? Or not say 11 to 1, or whatever their fixed arc is, and they start off, their loops are big. Okay? You see this when you're teaching. I see this in competitions, particularly with people who don't work on their casting very much. They start off with big loops. They then get a bit more line out, and now they're getting tight loops. Oops, hit the rod tip. Now they're getting tighter loops, okay? They then get a bit more line out, and nothing's changed, and then they're getting tailing loops because, well, I'm sort of maybe changing a little bit, but they're getting tailing loops because they've got this fixed arc. So you have to break that as an instructor. You have to change that. And the best way of changing that is actually one of Bill Gamble's drills. He calls it 1 foot at a time, okay? And he starts off with a very short length of line. Start with a very short length of line. He's going to pick that up and make a very small arc to get the tight loop, and then add a bit of speed. And as you add speed, you have to widen the arc. Add speed, widen the arc, then slow down, narrow the arc again, and put it down. Then you add 1 foot. You know what a foot is? Yeah. Okay. Half a meter if you like. It's a bit quicker that way. Okay. Same drill. Now, because there's a little bit more line, there's got to be a little bit more bend in the rod. So my arc has to be a little bit wider. My first one, and you can see if you're getting it right because you get these narrow loops. Then you add a bit of speed, widening the arc. And when you do this in your exam, you must show this wider arc, and then you slow down to a narrow rod. There is that test. You have that test from slow, medium, fast falls casting. They are looking to see that you widen your arc. That is what the examiners are looking for. That's a number one. If you don't widen your arc, you have a problem because you're saying something that you're not doing. So you must do it. Okay? What else about arc? That's it. So hang on, where are we? What was the first one?
Straight line path.
Good, this is getting good. The second one is?
Arc.
Arc. Okay, what is the third one?
Eliminate slack.
Yeah, okay, it could be. Yes, you can do it. There's any order. So that's a good one. Oh, God, look at this. Too much walking yesterday through the airport. All right, yeah, elimination of slack is one. We will cover that one next then because nothing works if you've got slack. All right? If you've got, this is what elimination of slack is. If you can't start an overhead cast like this. Okay, some people try to. Okay, it doesn't work, right? So you've got to get rid of this slack. How do you get rid of it? Still got slack there. Okay. Got a fly on the end, that's why. Not got a hook on it, by the way, but there is actually a competition fly on this. It's not a bit of wool. All right, so elimination. What else? What else does slack appear? Major cause of slack.
starting high.
Yeah, that's one, yeah. That's a good one. That's very important. This is very common. I'm not sure if that's, well, I think it's kind of slack. You've kind of got slack there. But the problem, there's a major problem with this, and I see this all the time, because the guy's starting the rod tip here, he then makes a lift, he then makes a casting stroke, line's going to go down, okay? That rod tip on the water. You've really got to reinforce that. When you're teaching, you've got to look for that. That's a really good one, because that rod tip has to be touching the water. They start getting to this position, then they're in this position, this position. It's getting very, very difficult now to teach somebody when they're starting the rod up here, because they're either not making a lift, and they're doing that, or they're making the lift and they're getting to here, and then they're doing that, and the line's going down. Okay, so get that rod tip down. But there's also another major cause of slack. It's one you're going to encounter a lot.
Yes.
About, and it's one you've got to look for. Not up there, it's here. Okay, you get the slack line on the haul because people do down up. Okay, and if you do down up, there's slack there. Okay, it's not down up. I know that's how we teach it, and that's how you're probably going to expect to be teaching it. It's not. It's actually down and up. There's a little pause in there. Down up is slack line there. Okay. Down and up, there's no slack line, okay? Or down,
When it's long distance, boy meets girl.
Right, so, slack line, so let's have another one. That's 3. Slack line, a very important one. What's 4? What do we have so far? Let's recap. Straight line path, the rod tip, yep. Arc.
Illumination straight line.
Illumination set line.
Pause.
Timing.
Short time.
Well, that's both of them there, right? One is power, or force, we like to call it now. And the other one is timing. Okay, so let's talk about timing first then. What is timing?
It's the pause at the end of each cast.
Okay, what about it?
So sometimes it can be too fast, that means the pause is too short, and sometimes the pause can be too long.
Okay.
If the pause is too short, it will create a snap, okay? And if it's really too fast, there'll be no tension in the rod will load prematurely, causing a lot of slack in the system.
Sorry, hang on, which was it? No, I lost that one. I think they were both the same. Hang on, so hang on. Too slow. Let's do too slow. You didn't do too slow.
Okay,
you
too
did
slow
both were too
is
fast
when-
and they were different, right?
Okay. If it's too slow, the gravity will take over and the line will drop to the
Okay.
ground.
Yes.
That's too slow.
Right. Yep. Okay. And too fast?
Too fast. Well, before the line has time to straighten,
Yeah.
when we start the cast, there'll be a snap because it will cause the line to move. You know,
Okay.
it's
Well, what was the other one you gave me?
really, really fast.
All right. Really, really fast.
really,
okay.
really fast.
Yes, that is a problem. I mean, and you see it. If the loop is still going back and you go forward, you get that, and then it dies, right? And you lose your fly sometimes. But I didn't. So what else have we got there? So that's very important. And if your pause is too long, you lose your fly because it hooks it down there. Okay. It's very rare that somebody pauses too long, but it's very often you'll see that. You know, why is it not working? Okay, you see that a lot, okay? Especially when there's wrist involved. You see that, you're going to have to deal with that. You have to pause and wait, blah blah blah. And so what's the last one though? I think is the most important essential of all. Yes, we resolve it to be straight line path of the rod tip because they all come together to make this happen. But the one thing that we're really doing when we are casting is we are applying force to the rod. Okay, it's how we move this rod through an arc that determines what everything happens. But it's our contact with the rod that delivers the cast. Okay, so what can you tell me about how to apply the force? Firstly, how should I apply the force on this rod to hit the target?
Smooth acceleration to a stop.
Yeah. And what about distance?
Distance.
Do I change how I move this? Do you change how you move this rod?
Are you talking about grip?
A little bit. Maybe you don't. Okay. Well, I'll show you what I do. When I throw targets, watch this wrist. This wrist is pretty fixed, right? And if you watch my rod, it's rotating through the cast. Okay. If I throw distance, I don't do that. If I throw distance, my rod goes do 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 do, and then turns over. Okay. Big difference in how I apply the power in a way. Okay. So there's two ways. So I'll show you that again. There's this one here. This kind of goes a little bit outside their definitions, but there's one here we use a lot in distance casting, and we call it drag, where the rod is at this angle, and we start pulling the rod through, and then we rotate. Okay. And we apply the power late. I don't apply the power from this point. What happens if I apply the power from here? What's the difference? If I apply the power big time from here, and watch when I apply it late. See the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. If I apply the power from here, applying it now. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to apply it later. Come through, same movement.
Speed.
Well, the speed,
Loop size.
the loop, very different, right? If I go from here and apply the power, big loop. If I come through and wait till about there, narrow loop.
Narrow.
So it cuts the
Yes, but it's because we are just driving that loop all the way through from that point there. We haven't gathered the line. We're coming through. We want to come over here, and I'm going to tell you, in distance casting, real distance casting, we don't hit it from here. We hit it from here, or here, in fact. We try to hit it from here, and then we hit it as hard as possible around. Okay. And I can hit, because a lot of people will tell you too much. This is kind of going outside your test, right? But this is good for you, I think. But a lot of people will tell you that too much power causes a tailing loop, right? You'll hear that a lot. They'll say, "Oh, I apply too much power." Well, I can come through here, and I can really come in, and that's not a tailing loop, okay? And when I distance cast, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to apply as much power, competition distance, not 65 feet, okay? But 120 feet, you're trying to hit it as hard as possible right at the end of the stroke. So I come here. You see the power is there, okay? From that point, bang, okay? Accuracy, I don't do that. I'm not coming to here and applying the power around. Accuracy, I'm doing this, okay? There's a difference. So, please somebody, please tell me what are, not you guys, somebody who hasn't talked yet. Somebody tell me what are the 5 essentials? Well, all of you together, what is number 1?
Straight line.
Okay, number 2?
Arc.
Okay, 3?
Timing.
Okay, 4?
Sled.
Yeah, last one?
Snagging line.
Okay. And there is no particular order for those last 4, okay? It doesn't matter. I normally would go arc, power application, timing, slack line. That's just how I do it, but it doesn't actually matter. What can you tell me about number 1?
Straight line path is affected by all the other forms.
Yes, and it's also
The
it's an action in itself, which is
tracking.
yes. Okay, good. We have those, and I think you have those now, right? Any question you get asked in your exam, you think about those 5 essentials, because I tell you, 90% of the questions you ever get asked are going to be related back to that. You're going to do, and this is a typical examiner's technique, right? But you're doing this. You're doing something wrong, right? Okay. He's watching your loop, and he's not very happy with it, and he does this. And this question is going to be, Michael, because I'm like that too. I would say, so what causes an open loop? Now, you've immediately got to think, shit, am I throwing an open loop? Because the chances are you are. So, it's all about tip path, okay? Open loop's tip path, back to the 5 essentials. Not a straight line path now, okay? Have you got a use for an open loop?
Oh,
Yes.
Where,
Okay.
where we have a big fly.
Yeah, okay. That's what's commonly taught. I'm not so sure, actually, to be honest.
Lock style fishing, you've got 3 flies on.
Yeah.
You need to separate them.
Yeah, I'm still not so sure
It'll
about
be
that.
a wide loop.
Yeah, wide. Yeah, it depends what you call an open loop too, I suppose. But yeah, there are. And another one is when you got. There's another one.
Sinking tip or sinking
Yeah.
line.
Okay. Good. All right. Any questions on that so far? Let me have a look at some of my notes here. Everybody understand all of that?
Anyone have any questions
We go around 1, 2, 3, 4. We go around 4 times. So you have a maximum of what's that? 80 points. Okay. You get a maximum of 80 points in this competition. I like this I like to practice this because there's a number of key points here. One is we hover the fly, and hovering is where you come forward and you can just see the fly hanging, and you can gauge your distance. You all understand hover? So I can see that fly. There's my fly. I know it's in the right place and it goes in. And then you do the strip in here. Give all the distance to the end. There. So, if I do it this way, I've never tried it like this. Well, it still kind of works. I tell you, I think I prefer this though. I like this style because I think it's good because there's a question in there about how you modify your stroke between short and long, and accuracy and long. And so I like to teach this, particularly when you've got a student who does this. Now you can't see it, but these guys can. Okay? So I'm casting it. You often get a student who does this with a rod. Okay? And if he does this, it's always going to be straight. Okay? It's something to practice. I don't know if you want to work on that now, but it's certainly it's something I would recommend working on because quite a few of you have a back cast which is slightly off to the side or not straight, and it's vertical here. I know that loop is going to travel straight over the tip of the rod, and that's very important. And accuracy, of course, is what are the keys to accuracy? Trajectory. Okay. Yeah. And how do you hit a ring?
Hovering.
What do you focus on? Well, you can hover the fly, right, to gauge the length, and it should never go left or right. Okay. You know, if you're actually on it, it should either be too long or too short. But I don't look at the ring. If I look at the ring, I miss the ring. I look right in the middle of the ring. I forget that, I focus on that. Okay? If I focus on that, there's something, I don't know, something I hear a lot of in archery. It must be an archery thing. If you take an arrow and you've got a building and you try to hit the building, you'll probably miss. But if you try to put it through a window in the building, you'll certainly hit, you might even go through the window, but you'll certainly hit the building. And it's a little bit like this. If I aim at the ring, chances are I'm going to miss it. So I focus completely on a point here. It's actually a lot easier to hit a target cone than it is to hit a ring, even though the cone is smaller. And that's so it is. You have to really dial in and focus on a target there.
Do you know whether or not you'll be using hoops or?
I've got no idea. I've got no idea. But it's more fun with hoops, I think. So don't look at the hoop. Refocus yourself. Look at the target right in the middle. There. And of course, why is trajectory important? Why does trajectory matter? Yeah, if your trajectory is down and it comes down, you're going to come down with flat line. Okay? So the trajectory is key. And so the shorter one here, this one, my back cast has to, if I'm that close, my back cast has to go up there so that it comes down. So yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things that would be very good for you before this exam is to work on accuracy, because I use it a lot when teaching to fix some of the issues that you have on your first cast. It's not straight. You have to come back, and I like to teach this. I like to teach this right foot forward, casting foot forward, elbow aligned, not out to the side. Everything's like I could be casting along a wall here. I could be leaning the wall, my hand's coming up, and this loop is going to come straight over the tip of the rod, as opposed to canting, which is going to come over to the side. If you come off to the side, dangers are the line's going to kick. Okay? It's actually one of my casts. If I've got snakehead babies here, let's say they're around that ring, and the snakehead comes up the other side, I don't want to put the fly straight over the top of the babies, because I have to pull it back through the babies and the snakehead don't take it. So what I do is I tilt the cast out to the vertical, and it makes a curved cast around the babies. It can fly around. All I've done, the only modification I've done to that stroke is I've gone from vertical to side, and it's kicked it, and it's put a curve.
Have you got any tips there for optimum casts? Thinking about exactly what you're saying there.
Well, I tend to put that. The important thing is the rod tip comes over this side, right? I don't know what they're looking for nowadays, but you can lean a little bit. That was one way. So there are a number of ways of casting off this shoulder. One is they commonly do in America, which is just where they tilt the hand like this. Okay. Another is you can keep it in line. You can do this. They don't like that anymore in the test, but I like that because it's nice and powerful. Okay? The loop's over here. Another one that's normally the English one, the British one, is where you take the hand this side. Right? Then of course the distance I deliver on the back arm. Okay? And then of course you've got the left hand as well. But I think the key here, my tips here, I would bring the hand, I would tilt it, and I bring the thumb to the eye. So I always try to, when I'm here, the thumb's at the eye. When I come here, the thumb's also at the eye. I'm sighting from the thumb to the target. So I've got to tilt a little bit and I've got to move my head, basically. So I've got to move my head this way, the rod tip's over this side, here.
The stance on the other feet on the other way, the other side.
I have.
Your stance.
No, I don't.
It's still going to be
Yeah, I
there.
still do that. Because I find this is too close now. So I still do that because the body already blocks it. Here, there's no block. You do this, it's blocked, but it's already blocked here. So it's almost it helps. There's a problem there, of course. If you go too much over here, you can tip the rod too much. There's no way of getting around that, I don't think. I don't think you can do this. So it's not perfect. That's why it's better to go off the right. You can. And obviously,
I actually feel 45.
Does it have to be 45?